Hello everyone. Today I'm going through some basics of coding. By now we only know print is one of the built-in functions in Python, but there are many of them, right? Step by step we'll learn most of them. But before anything, we need to know about Python language and Python implementation. The Python language, what is that? It's a set of rules and grammar for writing Python code. And then what is Python implementation? It's a program that understands these rules and execute Python code based on these rules. Okay, so the one we downloaded from Python.org is the default implementation of Python, and it's called CPython. It's written in C, that's why they call that CPython. There are multiple implementations like JPython, written in Java, IronPython, written in C#, and PyPy or PyPy, which is written in kind of subset of Python. So if you give Python code to any of these, they should print out the same result, but in reality they don't, and they behave differently. The reason that there are different implementation is because the implementation of a specific program allows you to use that program's code. For example, JPython allows you to use some Java code in Python program. Okay, so now what about CPython? What CPython does? So it gives the text file. So imagine this is a text file that we are writing down our Python code, and the compiler will get this text file, the code we wrote down, then it will convert it to machine code, which is a kind of binary code 0-1. The interesting part is the way machine code is different in different operating systems such as Mac or Windows. For this reason, there should be another step before converting the text file that we are writing our code to the machine code. And this is the virtual machine. This is a task that virtual machine does. So what happens? Now, when we run a Python program using CPython, first our Python code compiles into Python bytecode, and then the bytecode is passed to the virtual machine and will convert it to the machine code and execute it, and will be executed. So it converts the bytecode to the machine code. So now what does Anaconda does? Anaconda is a Python distribution. We saw that last time. We downloaded Anaconda, and then we saw Spider and Jupyter Notebook there. So let me close this down and open Anaconda Navigator. Okay, so what is Anaconda Navigator? That makes every aspect of the Anaconda environment available through a convenient GUI. Okay, so Anaconda is a Python distribution. It bundles CPython, which is the default implementation of Python, right? It bundles CPython with several packages, for example, mathematic packages, or kind of graphic, packages. And then Anaconda also provides the desktop app, what you see here, Anaconda Navigator, and we talked about that already. Okay, so now let's begin. let's call the, actually let's launch the Jupyter notebook. You know how the process is. I have it in my browser, and then I will see some folders here. This is the main folder. If I open a new Python 3 Jupyter notebook, it will be saved in this main folder. So you should see what are these folders on your, where are these folders on your computer, because this is your main directory, right? Okay, so what I wanted to show you, I mean, not just opening a new Python file, I wanted to, not just creating a new Python file, I wanted to open a Python file, Jupyter Python file. For example, giving you some, uploading some notes for you, and then you want to open those notes, you download it. Let's say it goes to your download files, right? And let's say this is the file, Jupyter file that you downloaded. Look at the extension IPYNB. So this extension shows this is the Jupyter notebook file. Okay, so simply you find it and you click on it. It's going to open that Jupyter file for you. This is the name of that Jupyter file, right? Okay, so I'm going to minimize this one. As if you remember, I said don't close this terminal because it will close down all your Jupyter file without even being saved. Okay, I'm going to bring this here, and then this is the Jupyter notebook file I open. This is the main directory I talked about, right? Look, I could easily, what it does, really. Okay, so this is the main file. I could easily select any of this file, right? And delete them. But don't do that. This is your folder, main folder, don't do that. What I mean is, for example, I can open the download and go to my Jupyter file, and I could simply delete that, right? Okay, so I'm going to go back to the main folder. I'm going to open the Jupyter Notes file. Okay, I'm going to create a new Python 3 file. I'm going to click on this, so new Python 3, right? So what happens if I go to the previous tab? I will see that there is a new Python file, Jupyter notebook file is created, and the name is untitled, right? So I'm going to go here. Do you remember I said you can rename it? I'm going to call this lecture 01, and this will be the file that I'm going to upload for you on a Slack. Okay, rename it, right? And then let's click on this to save it to make sure we have it. Okay, as you see, the name has changed, right? Okay, so I maximize the window so you can see everything better. I'm going to zoom in, and then it will be perfect, right? Okay, so this is a lecture 1 file, and we learned how to save, create a new file, open a file, and rename it, save it, right? Okay, so there are 2 main kinds of cells in Jupyter Notebook. One is code cells, another is markdown cells. There's a third kind which is raw cells, but we won't use them that much in this course. I mean, these are just kind of basic information you should know about these notebooks that I'm writing down. Okay, code cell contains Python code like this one. Okay, for example, if I write down print, do you remember print function? I'm going to call the print function by writing down an expression here, and then I'm going to run this. How I'm going to run this? I'm going to press this button here to run it, or what I could do, I could use Shift Enter to run this, right? Okay, so I said expression. An expression goes between those codes, right? And previously I mentioned that you must have either two double codes that surrounding the expression or two single codes. They both must be matching symbols. Okay, so an expression is a combination of codes and operators that produces a value. So what is the value of this expression I wrote down? The value will be here, the result. And then imagine if I write down print 2 multiply 2, what is the value of this expression? 2 multiply 2, this is the expression. 2 multiply 2 is expression, and the value is 4. Okay, I hope you remember. Because I have a string here, I have code, and it will print exact same expression I have in between these codes. Otherwise, if it is just a math operation and you want to calculate the result, you don't have to have codes in there. Okay, so another print I want to show you. I want to write it down here. So print, I'm going to use, let's use a single code, $, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to multiply this expression to 10. So this whole thing will become expression for me. And if I run this, look what happens. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 10 $signs. So it will repeat this character for me, this symbol for me 10 times. This is the result of the expression I wrote down in this built-in function. Okay, so we will learn about that very soon. Okay, so let's go back to the code cells and the markdown cells. So the markdown cells, like this one, let me create a markdown cell. This is markdown cell. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to choose cell type markdown, right? If I choose this cell will be blocked. I cannot even run this, right? It will not give me an outcome. It will make it like a note for you. So we will see lots of this in your Jupyter notebook, because I'm going to create a kind of note for you every time I'm writing down something or I'm explaining anything. Okay, so what's the difference between markdown cell and the code cell? If you see, the code cell have this kind of things front of it, right? And markdown cell doesn't have anything in front of it. Okay, so let's do something else. Let's move this not markdown cell. Let's move this to the top. How did I move it? With this arrow, ups and down arrow. Do you see that? Okay. And then I can cut it. I can paste it somewhere. What I can do, I can add another cell over and over anywhere I want. If I click on this, I can add a cell after this. Okay, so these are something you should be more familiar when you are working with Jupyter Note. So how did I create a markdown cell? I went to the cell type. This is a code cell, this is a markdown cell, and another was raw cell. Okay, well, now cells are code cells by default. As you see, if I try to create a new cell by adding them, they are already become a code cell. And Jupyter has a bunch of keyboard shortcuts that make editing relatively quick and easy. And you can just, with a simple Google, you can find those kind of shortcuts, which are the kind of default for Jupyter notebooks. And it does auto-save every second or some, depends on your kind of setting. You can also save it on your own to prevent any data loss. Okay, and then I'm going to print out something for you for your information, for later reference. These are the website you can use to learn more about Jupyter notebook, and then these are some more that I'm printing here, copying here, pasting here. You can use this as your reference for later if you want to learn more about Jupyter notebook. Okay, there are some important information that you should know. As you may notice, I could easily run this cell before this one, or I can run this one before the previous one. So you can run the cells manually and the way you want, or you can run all of them together. If you go to this cell menu, you can see all different options. As you wish, you can change it the way you want. If all of a sudden you see an error or something happen, you can always go to kernel here and you can restart the kernel. In this way you will stop any error. Sometimes you will see some kind of warning message here. It says interrupted, or working, something like that. And sometimes your codes are running over and over and over and doesn't stop, so you may want to restart and clear everything and start all over again. So these are some important things about Jupyter notebooks. Okay, so as you see, the Python notebooks are really useful, especially when I, as instructor, can save them as a Python code, HTML, or even PDF. And if you know what is LaTeX, I can even export that to LaTeX. So it's a really functional kind of Python file. Okay, so I want to start with variable. What is variable? Variables are used to store information, and we can store values in them also. So, for example, in mathematics, x is a variable, y is a variable. If you write down x equal 2, you are assigning a value to x. So, x is a variable. So, Python variable names can contain uppercase, lowercase letter, digits, underscores, but the first character cannot be a number. So what all of this means if I write down x is a variable here, right? I can have a better name for this. If, for example, this is the first variable for me, I can write down x1, and this says this is the name of variable, the first variable, and then I can assign a value to this, and when you run it later, Python knows what is this x1, and it will give you output of the information you saved in this variable. Okay, so variable's name can have underscore, can have uppercase, lowercase, but the first letter cannot be, first character cannot be a number. For example, I cannot write down 1z or 1x. So this is wrong, and as you see, this is another color. This is showing something is wrong, and we are receiving syntax error. Now you know what is syntax error exactly. Okay, and one more thing I should mention here. Let's delete this. How to delete this? Let's find it actually. File. Okay, the easiest way, we can just cut it, right? And I'm going to go through all of them. Oh, here. Why didn't I see that? Okay, delete cell, right? I deleted that cell, and I'm going to add another cell here. Instead of adding, I saved it. Okay, so if I write down x1 equal 3, so this is a different variable name because Python knows that capital X is different from lowercase x. And if I run this, and later, let me add another cell here, I ask Python what was x1, it will say 3. And then let's again ask Python what was x capital X1, and it will say 2, right? Okay. Oh, one important thing. If I restart the kernel right now, restart the kernel and try to run this is interesting. You should know because sometimes you will receive an error and then you don't know what's going on. Okay, if you didn't run this cell previously and try to ask Python what is x1, it's going to give an error. Why? Because it doesn't know what is capital X underscore 1 because you didn't define it before. It was not defined because I restarted the kernel and all the information was gone. So if all the information is gone, if the kernel was restarted, I must define this first and then ask Python what is this. Okay, these are some kind of basic things you should know about coding with Python and especially Jupyter Notebook. Okay, so you can work on a Spider or you can switch to Jupyter Notebook. That's just on you. That's your choice. But I'm going to write down all the codes on Jupyter Notebook, and you should be able to extract this information. You should know how to work on these nodes and how to work with that, how to understand that. Well, these are becoming kind of messy. I want to okay, now we know edit and delete cells, and I'm going to delete this. I don't like everything's are messy. Okay, I'm going to delete all of them and start with our print function. Okay, so this is our print function, and if you notice, I wrote down two print function in the same cell, right? Now I'm going to write down hello again, and then I'm going to run both of these together, and we see they are printed in order. Hi everyone is first, and then hello again is the next, right? I can write down more print function here. Okay, so I want to do something. I want to write down print without this last quote. So what happens now? I'm receiving error, and then look at this. What it says, it's pointing to the place that you are receiving the error, and you are, you're missing something, correct? And then as soon as you correct this, it's going to fix everything for you, and you are not going to see the error anymore. Okay, so what's happening? We have two kinds of error: syntax error, which you already know, it's a kind of grammar error, and another one is runtime error. So, in the parentheses, I should mention that syntax error is called compile time error as well. So I'm going to add a note here, another one, markdown. Do you remember? I want to create a markdown, and I want to write down a note about syntax error. Well, I can change the type of this. Yeah, I can change the type of this. I will experience that later. You also try to figure out how you can change this kind of cell type. Okay, syntax error, in parentheses compile time error, right? And then another one is the runtime error. The next one is the runtime error. Well, I found something very interesting. I found that previously I used to change the markdown cells, the type of even markdown cells, to different kind of heading, but now it doesn't do that anymore. So if I choose this as a markdown, if I want to change the heading, it says Jupyter no longer uses special heading cells, and this is a continue. So it doesn't do that anymore like before. It doesn't change the type of markdown. Okay, so I'm going to change it to this one, and okay, I like this better. Okay, so there are two kind of errors, right? Runtime error will be the program runs but produces unintended result, so the program can easily crash. So this runtime error is definitely different from syntax error. So two runtime error, one was the syntax error, right? Okay, and then this is the definition of runtime error. Okay, so print function. Let's go back to the print function. Let's print again. Now this time I want to show you that I can write down something like this. I can separate some expressions in print function using comma. Let's have something like this. Okay, so what is the output of this? What is the output of all this expression? So first of all, print function is going to print this one, and then it's going to calculate this one without printing 3 plus 1. It's going to calculate the value, and then it's going to write down dot space, is this correct? Let's run it. So this is the way it works. Okay, I can write down something like that. Print double quote y is equal to 6. Okay, so I'm writing down a variable here, equal sign 6. So what is going to happen? Print function is going to print y space equal space and then 6 front of that. Okay, do you think now the value of this variable y is 6? Do you think it's going to show me the value of y if I ask Python what is the value of y? Well, let's see. No. Why? Because I didn't define this variable. If I want to define a variable, I should write down y equals 6 in this way, right? The print function printed all the expression I asked from it. It doesn't assign a value to the variable. It's just print whatever I'm asking. It's not assigning any value. This way is the correct way to assign a value. So if I write down y equals 6, and now if I ask Python what is y, it's going to say it's 6. So remember, this is the correct way we assign a value to a variable. Okay, so what we call this sentence, I commented front of my expression. I commented using pound sign, and whatever I write down after pound sign is going to be a comment for my code. It's not going to print out, it's not going to be an output, it's just going to be the comment. So I'm going to comment all my code this way. This is not the correct way to assign a value to variable. Okay, so I commented this out. Why do we receive an error? Okay, so one more thing about variables. We cannot, do you remember variables name? I said it can be capital, uppercase, lowercase, all these things. We cannot have a number as a first character if you are giving a name to a variable. Also, we cannot choose a reserved word in Python as a variable's name. So what this reserved word means, that is the kind of word that is already defined in Python, and we cannot use that as a variable name. For example, print is already defined function in Python, right? I cannot say print is equal something. This is wrong because print is already a function. It's already defined in Python. So we cannot do this. This is wrong. So I'm going to just put a pound sign front of it. So you know this is wrong. And then another reserved function is, for example, type, right? We can find the type of a variable using this reserved word type. And we cannot use type for variables name. Okay, for example, if I write down type 4 point, let's say 4, it should give me int, means the type of this value is integer, right? So type is already defined in Python. Therefore, I cannot write down, I cannot choose a variable name like this, type equal something, because type is a reserved word in Python. Okay, so these are something you should always pay attention, otherwise you will receive an error and you don't know why where this error is coming from. So let me write down and find all the reserved word in Python for you, and write down as a note here. Okay, what we should do here, we should choose this as a markdown, right? For example, and, as, break, class, all of these are the reserved word in Python. Continue, df, dl, else if, false, true, finally. So these are all the reserved word that you cannot use as variables name in Python. In, is. There are more reserved word, while, lambda, none, all of these. I'm going to have all of them here for you so you can review them and not have any mistake by choosing them as your variable's name. And then I'm going to write down for you the variable's name you can choose. Okay, so variable's name. It can have uppercase, lowercase letter, digits, underscore. First character cannot be a number. Capital X and lowercase x are different from each other. And then variable name cannot be a reserved word. And these are the reserved word in Python. Okay, so that's it so far. Okay, so I organized everything for you. Now it looks much better. Okay, so we talked about the variable's name, and when I said underscore, look, I can have a variable name like hi with underscore equal to like 2.1, for example. And then if I write down hi, then you will see what's the result, right? Okay, so arithmetic operation, we want to talk about arithmetic operation. But before actually arithmetic operation, one last thing I forgot to talk about and show you about print again. Let me write it down here when we had last print here. Okay, so print. I can separate some expression, like as you see here, we have one expression, two expression, three expressions separated by commas, right? And then as you see, all the expressions are exactly written after each other. So if I want to write down each of these expressions in a line, what can I do? So the same thing here. Let me just copy paste everything. That's not a good way, but let's copy paste this here. And then what I'm going to write down SEP equal to. SEP is one of the arguments for print function. And as you see, everything, all the letters are lowercase SEP. I had a comma, then SEP equal what? Equal a space. It can be equal comma. It can be equal no space, like this. There's nothing between these commas, right? And the most important thing that everyone will use is /n. So what this does, if I enter this, it will print each of these expression in a line for me. One line, the next line, and the last line. So this is the effect of having a /n. It will print everything in a separate line for you. SEP equal n will print each expression in separate line. Okay, so I want to add another one and see the effect of another separation argument. Okay, so hi, comma, another string, and then I'm going to separate them with comma. Okay, so what I'm going to expect here, comma between each of these string, and then pay attention, we have a space here, right? The space will be printed here after comma. So this separate equal comma will separate the expression for me by comma. If I had a space, it will separate everything by a space, you wouldn't see the comma. So you should try and see how this kind of things work. Okay. So the next thing, as I said, arithmetic operation. Okay, arithmetic operation. First of all, I'm going to write down a note for you here as a kind of topic. And I'm going to create a markdown here. Well, this, I don't like this kind of heading. Okay, and I'm going to make it markdown like this. These are all new feature of Jupyter Notebook. I'm going to copy all this kind of arithmetic operation for you. These are all the arithmetic operation you can use in Python, multiplication, addition, subtraction, and look at this exponential form. This is the power. A star, double star is the power. One star means you're multiplying two variables, and there is actually another form of writing down the exponential form, POW, X and Y. This is the first argument, this is the second argument. And negation, absolute value. Okay, so x equal 2, then y equal 5. Then I want to see what is x plus y, 7. So the result will be printed. So what happens here, x is defined as 2, we assigned 5 to y, then we added x and y. Now I can use print to print out the result of x plus y, which is kind of better way of writing down your code, because if you don't have a print function here, if you don't use print function, the Jupyter Notebook will just show you the last result, which is 7. Imagine if I ask Jupyter to calculate 2 multiply x and then x plus y, what is the output? Output is just 7, means the last one. But if I write down print and then I write down another print here, I will see the both results in order. Okay, so this is a multiplication, remember? So we tried multiplication as well. And let me try the exponent also. So I want to see what's the result of x power y. So x power y means 2 power 5, right? 2 power 5, correct? It will be 32. I can have y power x, and this one must print out 25, correct? Okay, so and then what else was that? It was POW, P-O-W, x and y. So what's the result of this? Let's see, 32, right? Because this one that I wrote down in print function is a function that will calculate x power the second element, which is y. So this one is exact same as x star star y, correct? And then let me copy this again. Now I want to change the order of these elements. And this is what you see. Okay, so I think you better work on all of this and see how everything works so far, and how the arithmetic operation. Also try all of these to see what's the result of each of them. Don't just copy paste what I'm writing down here. Experiment on your own. Write down, for example, assign different value to different variable, change the variable name, and try different way and experiment to see how everything works and what kind of error you receive, because without receiving error you are not going to learn anything. Now the question you have for this lecture is about the print function and the argument that I explained about print function. There was an argument that does different things. Explain what I actually explained, and write down about that argument in a Word document as a participation point for this lecture. Okay, also please let me know if you have any question. Okay, have a good day, take care of yourself.